Hello, friends, and welcome to the reading of White Fur Flying by Patricia McLaughlin. Notice the dog on the cover, big and white and hairy and dopey. It comes in handy in this story, let me tell you. And here's the blurb. I know you've heard it, but bears repeating. Zoe's family rescues dogs in need. There's always the sweet smell of dog and a warm body looking to cuddle or play. There's always a new dog to be saved and loved. Fur flies everywhere. It covers everything. Zoe's house is never silent. The house across the street is always silent these days. A new family has moved in, and Philip, the boy, has stopped speaking. He doesn't even want to try. Saving dogs and saving boys might be different jobs, but Zoe learns that some parts are the same. Each takes attention and care. Each takes understanding and time. And it might just take a bit of white fur flying to help Philip find his voice again. So Zoe is the older sister of a pair of sisters. Okay, the younger sister is Alice. You'll get a kick out of her. She's quite a storyteller. Chapter 1. Once upon a time there was a wicked queen, said my younger sister Alice. She peered out the window at the house over the field and across the small brook. I looked and saw a woman, her hair piled on top of her head, walking up the sidewalk. She was followed by movers carrying furniture. The wicked queen had 2 children. They were bad children, and she often punished them. Alice, said Mama from the screened side porch, can't you tell a pleasant story? Alice was the storyteller in the family, some of her stories filled with hilariously mean characters. How did she punish them? I asked. Zoe, don't encourage her. I watched my mother through the open door to the porch. She brushed Cody. She always brushed dogs on the screen porch, then swept all the hair up. If I brush them outside, she had said, the hair blows around and hangs on the trees and bushes. Cody was a Great Pyrenees, 140 pounds of white fur. May, almost as big, stood waiting for her turn. There was fur everywhere. Porch floor, furniture, and on Mom's jeans. Soon May would be adopted into a new family, and there would be other new dogs, one after the other. Mama rescued peers, as she called them, and found homes for them so they wouldn't be put to sleep. Once we had 5 of them in our house. When they lay on the wood living room floor, they made a huge, deep white rug. I watched the movers carry a sapphire blue velvet couch into the house along with 2 matching chairs. Mama came to look out the window too. No great peers on that furniture, she said. That's for sure. Not on that beautiful couch and those chairs. There's probably no dogs at all, said Mama, or cats. And no children, I said. We watched a series of tables with carved legs be carried in, and then velvet drapes were carefully lifted by 2 men. She punished her children in the drapes, announced Alice, making me jump. I'd almost forgotten she was there. She rolled them up like burritos, so only their heads showed. They couldn't get into trouble that way. Mama couldn't help but laugh. You have a nice way, Alice, she said. We watched a second pair of bright velvet drapes be carried in. I suppose I should be neighborly and invite her over for tea, said Mama. Not in this house, Mama, I said. Not during shedding season. We watched the white fur flying into the room, carried by the summer breezes coming off the porch. Some stuck to Mama's shirt. A clump floated by my nose, so close I caught the satisfying smell of dog. You can invite her in, said Alice. She won't punish you. We don't have drapes. Mama put one arm around Alice and one around me. No drapes, she said. Just dogs. We watched a wooden carved porch swing being hooked up on the porch. We could weave drapes from the fur of the dogs, Alice said. It would make life much more exciting. Before Mama could answer, a long black car pulled up and a man stepped out. And suddenly the king arrives, says Alice in what Daddy called her hushed wildlife documentary voice. Usually that voice whispered, and then the leopard sees its prey. Even though it was summer, the man wore a jacket and a tie. He opened the passenger door. After a moment, a small boy climbed out. "And the prince!" said Alice, surprised. The man turned and began to walk up to the house. The boy stood still. Then he turned and stared at our house. He saw us all in the window, a mother, 2 children, and 2 huge white dogs. Beside me, Cody's tail began to wag. The boy stared. Then the man king turned and came back, taking the boy's hand, pulling him up the sidewalk. The boy kept staring at us until he went up the porch steps and into the house. "Not a prince," said Alice. "A prisoner." Interesting, right? We get to meet the 2 sisters, quite comical, and Mom taking care of 2 huge Great Pyrenees dogs. Now chapter 2. We meet new characters. My father came home just before dinner. He still wore his white vet medical jacket. He carried a large covered cage. Cody and May ran up to him, sniffing. "So what is this?" asked Mama. "I saved the life of an African gray parrot today," said Daddy. "And did the parrot thank you?" asked Mama. Daddy took the cover off the parrot cage. "Did you thank me?" said Daddy to the parrot. "You can't know," said the parrot loudly in a British accent. My mother laughed. "She belongs to a woman going into a nursing home. She can't keep him," said my father. "Feisty woman, I'd say," said Mama. "What's your name?" asked Alice. "You can't know," said the parrot. "Lena," said Daddy. "Lena is her name." "Lena," repeated Lena. Cody and May sidled up closer to the parrot. "Easy, May," said Mama. "Sometimes these dogs don't like birds." "Easy, May," said Lena. Cody sat and stared. "Most birds don't talk, do they, Cody?" said Daddy, scratching Cody's ears. "I have a question," said Mama. "What is Lena doing here?" Daddy grinned. "This question from you," he said. "The dog woman? The rescue angel?" "You got me into it, John," said Mama. "Remember? The dogs need saving, Claire." "Well, Lena needs saving too," said Daddy. "Someone has to keep Lena until we find her a home." "What do you eat?" I asked Lena. "You can't know," we all said at the same time, even Lena. This made Lena laugh. It was a high-pitched, wild sound that made us all laugh. The more we laughed, the more Lena did, and the more we did, then on and on. Sounds like a funny scene, right? The next day, early, there was morning mist, with sun shining through. I let Cody and May out into the large fenced-in yard. They ran to the side fence, and I could see the boy from next door standing there. Behind him, the man got into his black car and drove off without a wave. The boy put out his hand, and Cody nosed it through the fence. The boy smiled. Then he looked up and saw me, and his smile went away. "It's all right," I called, walking down through the wet grass in my bare feet. "That's Cody. His real name is Kodiak. And May, who's licking your hand. I'm Zoe. What's your name?" The boy was silent, but still stood staring at the dogs. Cody's tail wagged, and the boy smiled again. "Philip! Philip, come away from those beasts!" The woman with the piled-up hair stood on her porch. "It's all right," I said to her. "They're good dogs." "They could bite," she said loudly, coming down the steps. She walked across the grass, carefully stepping over the small brook that ran between our houses. "No, they'd never bite," I said. "Never," said Mama, suddenly standing behind me. "Not when someone is kind to them." "Philip, is that your name?" she asked. He nodded. "He doesn't speak," said the woman impatiently. "At least not to us. My husband's niece left him with us, and we're keeping him while—" She hesitated. while his parents solve a problem. Well, Philip, you can visit the dogs anytime, said Mama. You don't have to talk. Philip looked at my mother for a long time. And you are welcome to visit too, said Mama to the woman. I'm Claire Cassidy. Mama put out her hand across the fence. The woman took her hand and then dropped it. I'm Phyllis Croft, she said. Just rented this house for a few months. Welcome, said Mama. We'll have tea sometime. Mrs. Croft backed up a bit. And I have a daughter, Alice, who's probably about Philip's age. Are you about 10? He's 9, said Mrs. Croft crisply. She grabbed Philip's arm and pulled him away. We have errands, she said. Nice to meet you, she added. Nice to meet you, Philip, said Mama. And you, she quickly added to Mrs. Croft. Mama and I watched them go back up the steps to their front porch. Philip turned to look at us. All of a sudden, he held his hand up in a small wave. Well, Cody, I'm surprised you didn't bite that woman, said Mama. Cody wagged his tail. I feel sorry for Philip, I said. Mama sighed. I do too. Alice is right. He is a prisoner, I said. Mrs. Croft is mean. Mama seemed thoughtful. I wonder, she began. I looked up at her waiting. I think she's scared, said Mama. Scared of what? Mama smiled slightly. Oh, dogs. She's scared of dogs. And I think... And she stopped. What? I think maybe she's scared of Philip. Mama and I stood at the fence for a moment. You can't know! A voice came from inside the house. Let's go, said Mama, smiling. Lena's awake. As we walked in, I turned to look at the Cross house and saw Philip in the window watching us. I smiled. He smiled too. So as you can see, Lena is the narrator of the story. Chapter 3. He doesn't speak? Asked Alice. No, I said. No, said Lena. Why? Asked Alice. I shrugged. Okay, said Alice. I can talk. I smiled. You sure can, I said. You and Lena. He doesn't have to talk, said Alice. That's what Mama said. Now this is in italics, which usually means that it's going on inside the character's head. But why didn't he talk? Was he afraid? Was he sad? He must have talked once, maybe when he was a baby, when he was little. Maybe he had talked last week. Why not now? Dad finished his coffee. I have to go. I have dogs and cats and one donkey to see, he said. You want me to take Lena to the clinic? She could be a bother there. Lena? Bother? Said Lena. Mama smiled. It's okay. We can put the cover on her cage if she talks too much. That quiets her. Funny, I said. There's a boy next door who doesn't talk, and a parrot inside who talks all the time. And a man who drives a black car and comes and goes slyly, said Alice. Slyly? I asked. Alice nodded. He's not a king, she said. He's a spy. Spies don't talk much. They just spy. Daddy smiled. Could be, he said, though you seem more like a spy than Mr. Croft. I'm a writer, said Alex. Kind of like a spy, said Daddy. Alice smiled as if she knew that. The phone rang and Mama answered it. Hello? Oh, yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh, said Lena, making us laugh. I have a leash for her, by the way, said Mama. See you in the morning, then. She hung up the phone and leaned down to hug May. Mama's face was very serious. May's going to her new home tomorrow? Asked Dad. Mama nodded, and Daddy put his arm around her. I'll miss May, he said. We'd all miss May, but what Daddy meant was that he knew Mama would miss her most. Mama had rescued May. Well, May has a great home in the country, said Mama with a small smile, with a pond, with a family who will love her. And she stopped suddenly. And what? Asked Daddy, as if he knew what. I got a telephone call last night. There are 2 more dogs coming, said Mama. Daddy didn't say anything. I had to, she said. They wouldn't be alive in 2 days, so I'm taking them. 2, said Daddy. 2. I have to drive across state to pick them up. 1 is young. Daddy nodded. 2, he said, beginning to laugh. 2, said Lena, laughing with Daddy. Now, there's a page break. We know what that means, that we're changing the setting or the time. The Crofts' house was the only other one we could see from our house. Ours was old. The farmer who owned all the land around it had lived here with its uneven wood floors and lavender wavery glass windows, its 5 fireplaces and 3 closets. When the farmer retired, he built the house where the Crofts lived. The dogs had almost a half-acre fenced in for running and digging and sleeping under trees. There were still cattle and horses in the fields surrounding our house. Sometimes Cody spent time watching over the cows from his side of the fence. It was a great peer's job in life to guard the herd. Cody kept watch over them in his own way. The fence was where I found Alice and Philip, sitting cross-legged with the dogs. Alice was talking. My father is a vet. He takes care of small and big animals. Mama rescues Great Pyrenees dogs so they won't be killed. We have a talking parrot inside. You can come and see her if you want. Cody and May lay on either side of Philip, Cody's big head on his lap. Did Mrs. Croft allow Philip to come inside the fence? I asked Alice. Yes, I told her he was coming over for a visit. I said we'd walk him home when he was ready. And? She didn't say anything, said Alice. I laughed. The door opened and shut next door. Mrs. Croft stood on the porch. Come home soon, Philip, she called. We have to go shopping before lunch. No, thank you, Mrs. Croft, called Alice. Mrs. Croft's mouth hung open in surprise. Alice stood up, and Philip stood too. Philip's having lunch at our house, she called. Don't worry, it'll be healthy. Alice took Philip's hand, and they walked toward the house. The Queen watches, said Alice softly. Come, royal doggies. Cody and May walked on either side of them like guardian angels. I looked back. Mrs. Croft had gone inside. A little slice of sunlight marked the place where she had been. I'm going to stop right there.